Lawyer: Hu Xinyu's death announcement was suspicious and diverted attention. More than a dozen teenagers have gone missing throughout China as Hu Xinyu's case is being investigated. Analyst: Will Blinken's visit to China, McCarthy's visit to Taiwan, and the CCP's red line work? Chinese air and naval incursions have put Taiwan's military on high alert. It's all covered in today's China Truths. Lawyer: Hu Xinyu's death announcement was suspicious and diverted attention. Hu Xinyu, a 15-year-old student of Jiuan High School in Yanshan County, Jiangxi Province, has been missing for 106 days. On January 29, local police reported that a body had been found hanging in the Jinji Forest, which is located to the south of this school. After a DNA examination, the deceased was identified as Hu Xinyu. Many people, both inside and outside of China, were shocked by this news, which aroused widespread suspicion. Human rights lawyers outside of China noted that the timing of Hu Xinyu's finding was extremely strange. They believe that this was an attempt by Chinese officials to divert attention away from the tragic number of deaths associated with the ongoing COVID outbreak in China. Wu Xiaoping, a Chinese human rights lawyer living in the United States, told the Epoch Times on January 30 that the China Human Rights Lawyers Group has recently ranked this case as the 7th in the top 10 cases of 2022. This is the outcome of the public's efforts to seek the truth, but the result is extremely regrettable and filled with anomalies and questions. First and foremost, why did Hu Xinyu hang himself? For what reason? Officials did not provide a satisfactory response. Furthermore, how did he manage to avoid so many internal security cameras? Why did he, coincidentally, vanish in the corner of the security cameras and reappear on the hill behind the school? Second, while public opinion in China was in turmoil over the case of Hu Xinyu, Jiangxi police said that they had conducted a so-called carpet inspection in the area of Jiuan High School, using a variety of methods such as rescue dogs, infrared thermal cameras, and 3D search, among others. Why couldn't they find Hu Xinyu? Why was his body found after 106 days, and how did they find it? How did this body get there? Third, according to the Jiangxi police report, Hu Xinyu died after hanging from a tree. After 106 days of rain and sun, how can the body still be hanging intact? Fourth, the public's biggest concern is whether or not Hu Xinyu's organs were stolen. Do officials allow the victim's family members to inspect the body thoroughly? Nothing has been made public up to this point. The media in mainland China reported on Friday that following the autopsy of Hu Xinyu, officials believed it was very likely that he committed suicide. According to Huang Ziyin, a freelance media employee, the case was quite suspicious because the body was found hanging from a tree, which was then determined to be a suicide. He said, the possibility of suicide by hanging is very small. Moreover, based on the photos, the hanging rope is expertly knotted. It's definitely not something a boy can do. In other words, the probability of murder is close to 100%. It seems very foolish, using a method full of loopholes to prove the boy committed suicide. Huang Ziyin said that if Hu Xinyu had lived without seeing a person and died without seeing a body, this tragedy would have passed. According to Huang Ziyin, the disappearance of teenagers has become increasingly common in recent years, and the public is growing suspicious that the teenagers' organs were taken while they were still alive. Gao Zhanxiang, former party secretary of the China Literary Arts Federation and vice minister of culture of the CCP, passed away recently. In a eulogy for Gao Zhanxiang, an official revealed that Gao Zhanxiang had many of his organs replaced. This revelation has once again raised concerns about how high-ranking CCP leaders rely on organ harvesting to prolong their lives. Wu Xiaoping, a Chinese human rights lawyer, believes that the timing of Hu Xinyu's body's discovery is suspicious, especially given that officials have stated that they had looked everywhere but found nothing. Mr. Wu Xiaoping said, "Is it because they want to hide a bigger scandal and divert public attention that they only announced Hu Xin유's case? A lot of old people have died in this epidemic. The death toll is very high. We cannot rule out the possibility that they, the CCP, took advantage of Hu Xinyu's case to distract people from the epidemic situation. However, Mr. Wu Xiaoping believes that, whether it is the death toll from the epidemic or the announcement of Hu Xinyu's death, the situation is the same. No matter what the CCP says, people no longer believe it, and the CCP's reputation has been ruined, and no one believes in it anymore, whether inside or outside China. More than a dozen teenagers have gone missing throughout China as Hu Xinyu's case is being investigated. More and more questions have been raised in the Hu Xinyu case. People are becoming increasingly concerned about China's murky organ transplant industry. Before the dust settles, from a month before the Chinese New Year until today, at least 10 cases of missing teenagers have been reported in many locations, including Shandong, Hebei, Hunan, Sichuan, Jiangxi, and Hubei. Recently, a tracing platform on Douyin in mainland China has continued to release dozens of videos of missing people. Videos show that at least a dozen teens went missing in several Chinese provinces and cities in January alone. Some wrote leaving home and then losing touch, others lost contact after going out to play basketball with classmates, and a senior high school girl disappeared during the recess of the school's evening self-study class, reminiscent of the Hu Xinyu case. According to a report by Radio Free Asia on November 21, 2022, from October to November 2022, more than a dozen cases of mysterious disappearances of middle school students occurred throughout China. Lin Xingliang, who has been tracking bullying incidents in Chinese schools for a long time, told RFA that he receives missing notices in Chinese schools every day and that there has been an unusually high number of missing cases recently. Regarding the reason for these disappearances, he stated, the Chinese government has passed legislation to legalize organ transplantation. Former Vice Minister of Health Huang Jiefu has stated on various occasions that China will become the world's largest organ transplant country. According to current affairs analyst Zhang Jianping, as the Hu Xinyu case was brewing, companies in the organ transplant sector were still attempting to go public, which added fuel to the fire of those opposed to the legalization of organ transplantation. He said that, while a high number of young people and children go missing in China every year, the CCP's official media exaggerates the number of heart and liver transplants performed by Chinese experts in a single day. All of this naturally makes people think of the dark abyss of organ transplantation. He also admitted that developing human organ transplantation technology in a country with no legislative oversight and a history of serious human rights violations is inappropriate. China uses more surveillance tools than any other country in the world, including a massive number of CCTV cameras, big data, face recognition, travel and health codes, and so on. However, incidents involving missing people occur frequently, and the police's attitude toward investigating and handling such cases is generally unfavorable. It raised the possibility that the organs of these missing people were taken and sold. In a recent interview with RFA, well-known political commentator Yakagawa noted that because of Chinese culture, very few people voluntarily donate organs, and CCP officials never reveal the true source of organs. The CCP claims that the organs used for transplants are primarily from executed prisoners, but the number of executed prisoners in China is limited and cannot meet China's massive demand for organ transplants. According to him, the CCP reported that the number of organ transplants per year is between 10,000 and 20,000. However, based on the number of existing Chinese organ transplant centers, the number of hospital beds, and the turnover rate, some research institutions estimate that the actual number of transplants in China is about 70,000 to 100,000 per year. He further pointed out that statistics show that China's organ transplant industry has seen explosive growth since the persecution of Falun Gong began in 2000. Since 2006, Falun Gong practitioners have been the first to expose the atrocities of live organ harvesting on imprisoned Falun Gong practitioners as well as prisoners of conscience. However, due to the tremendous revenues it generates, China's organ transplant industry continues to grow substantially. As a result, it will be required to look for other supply sources outside of the Falun Gong community. Mr. Yakagawa said, ordinary Chinese people have their organs stolen by them, which is actually an expansion of the persecution of Falun Gong practitioners and live organ harvesting.
一直到自杀的。
Analyst, will Blinken's visit to China, McCarthy's visit to Taiwan, and the CCP's red line work? U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken will visit China on February 5th and 6th, making him the first U.S. Secretary of State to do so since 2018. He will meet with Qin Gang, China's foreign minister. Some analysts believe that the purpose of the Sino-U.S. talks is quite different. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning,
不要做影响中美关系、破坏台海和平稳定的事情。
On January 30th, the CCP maintained a hard stance and drew a red line for Blinken's visit to China. On January 31st, the White House avoided the CCP's red line and focused on discussing the Russia-Ukraine issue with China. Tang Jingyuan, a current affairs commentator, said,
你可以看到中美的重点是不一样的，就是美方的重点是在俄乌战争，而中共它的重点肯定是放在台海这个危机。当然，目前看起来焦点就是麦卡锡的访问台湾。那么麦卡锡对台湾的访问，我觉得这个是难以避免的事情。
McCarthy, the new Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, is expected to visit Taiwan before April 10th. Mr. Tang continued,
那么对美国和日本的这些就是它的盟国吧，包括对整个国际社会的自由民主的阵营来说呢，台湾它是捍卫整个自由民主阵营的第一线，对呢也是不可能放弃的。也就是说，中美新冷战我们都知道它的核心之争呢是价值观之争，而这种价值观之争这个矛盾它是不可调和的。
On February 1st, the People's Daily, the CCP's mouthpiece, intensified its warning and issued an article highlighting that Taiwan is at the core of China's core interests. As Blinken's visit approaches, the CCP has increased its military threat to Taiwan. Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense reported on February 1st that 34 flights of Chinese military aircraft were recorded in the Taiwan Strait in just one day. 20 of them crossed the Taiwan Strait's center line. However, this escalation of the threat is seen as counterproductive. Tang Jingyuan says, the more the CCP escalates its threat to Taiwan, the more the international community will escalate its support for Taiwan. Chinese air and naval incursions have put Taiwan's military on high alert. On February 1st, Taiwan scrambled fighter jets, alerted its navy, and activated missile systems in reaction to the Chinese military deploying over 36 aircraft and warships near Taiwan's air defense identification zone. In a February 1st tweet, Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense stated, 34 Chinese military aircraft and 9 warships were detected around Taiwan at 6 a.m. on February 1st. ROC armed forces have been monitoring the situation and have tasked CAP aircraft, Navy vessels, and land-based missile systems to respond to these activities. 20 of the detected aircraft had crossed the Taiwan Strait's median line and entered Taiwan's southwest ADIZ. Previously, on January 25th, the Taiwanese military detected 4 Chinese aircraft and 3 Navy vessels. The incursion happened only days after Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen wrote to Pope Francis on January 23rd, emphasizing that meaningful conversation with China is only possible if Beijing respects Taiwan's freedoms and democracy. Last December, the Chinese military sent a record 71 aircraft and 7 ships to Taiwan, making it the largest major military exercise of the year. Such incursions are now nearly daily occurrences in the region, with Beijing carrying out such activities to bolster its military capabilities. According to the Associated Press, Ma Xiaoguang, a spokesperson for China's Taiwan Affairs Office, stated on January 11th that Beijing was committed to putting a stop to Taiwan independence plans. A few foreign nations' anti-China groups' malicious support for Taiwan independence is a deliberate provocation. Meanwhile, the head of the U.S. Air Mobility Command, General Mike Minihan, has warned that the U.S. might be at war with China in 2 years. In a memo, he stated that Chinese President Xi Jinping has been elected for a 3rd term in October 2022, while presidential elections in the United States and Taiwan are scheduled for 2024. Mike added that the presidential race in the United States may provide Xi with a distracted America. So far, U.S. policy toward Taiwan has allowed the island's people to really flourish while avoiding conflict with China. But, he warned, this is changing as Beijing accelerates its unification effort. Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. We will keep reporting on the COVID surge in China, so don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell to get the latest videos. And thank you for tuning in.